Hello, viewers and listeners of Light Up with Shwa podcast. This is part 2 with Saleena Karim. Hope you have enjoyed part 1 with her as well. Let me know what you think of the previous and this interview with her. Take care and happy holidays. What heat did you get? What kind of, I'm trying to still understand if you want to share. I mean, it doesn't have to be.
It's just the kind of heat that anyone who would write about a Muslim Jinnah would get. So I saw this very funny conversation. And what happens is people like to do personal attacks. And people like to make stuff up. And I'll give you my favourite, because this one made me laugh, in fact. I don't remember exactly where I saw it. It was a few years ago. And somebody was, without any basis of evidence, they just said, oh, well, Saleena Karim, she was somebody who worked for directly for General Zia.
Huh?
And she was his she was one of his agents, and she and I'm thinking, well, that would be a very interesting thing for me to be, given that I was a toddler at the time.
Oh, wow.
It just makes me laugh. So people have such crazy like it's like they're so heavily invested in what they want to stick to that they'll say anything to put people off even daring to look. It's like putting up a kind of straw man, isn't it? So they just kind of say, you know what, this person is like this person is like this, and this and like this. So I've had the personal attacks. I've had one or two people email me with not very polite messages, but that's been, these are very very much a minority of the feedback that I received. Generally, I've had positive feedback, and in fact, some left-wing writers have been very kind and have been very, openly saying, well, actually, this book is saying something a bit different. And they kind of are bringing themselves into at least a partial alignment with what I've written. So it's not, I've had a more positive than negative. Yes, and in fact, something I did try to say before, right now it escapes me where I said it, but I said somewhere that my aim is, actually I might be in the preface, my aim is not to kind of push my personal point of view,
yes,
even though I have one. Like everybody, I have a personal opinion, and my opinion in my case is backed with evidence. Okay, fair enough. Whether one agrees with the evidence or not, that's up to the individual. My real aim is to kind of show people that it's not about what one thinks, but how one thinks. That's important. So we need to kind of come back together, no matter which side we're on, and start learning to discuss again, because we've forgotten how to do that. And that's something I learned from this writing experience. And I think that if that is something we can get to, dialogue is a different thing. I mean, just plain discussion. Just say, well, these were the facts. Whether or not one agrees with a secular Pakistan or an Islamic Pakistan, irrespective of that, this is what happened and this was the outcome. And this is, if you like, possibly the only one I know of, the only case study of how a few misquoted words, a false quote, has changed the course of history. It has literally changed the way people perceived their country. It created all this confusion. Everyone acknowledges there is confusion. But weird as it sounds, it all seems to have come down to this quote, even though there is a background prior to that quote, and it's to do with an intellectual lack of cohesion, a lack of unity among the various types of Muslims that were in Pakistan. Irrespective of that, this moment in time when this quote was introduced was the moment that this problem began. And interestingly, most interestingly of all, was the fact that this quote was first utilized by the opposition leader of the first Constituent Assembly of Pakistan itself, and they were days away from promulgating the first Constitution of Pakistan, and that went out of the window. And it's not just because of that discussion that they had, I think, a 76-page long discussion about the ideology of Pakistan, and something like 18 times this quote was used because it was brand new. It had never come up before.
Right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what is Islam then?
Well, Islam, do you mean for me personally? Because
of course.
I can give you my personal understanding is that Islam is a state of mind. So it's a state of individual mind and it's a state of collective mind. So to be defined as someone who believes in this book, the Quran, as a divine book, that is reaching one state of Islam in the individual capacity, and then a group of people coming together and forming what would today be called a nation state or a system or whatever you want to call it, and then living collectively and accepting a certain number of principles. That would be the collective version of Islam. So that's but it ultimately is a psychological state. It's not so much it's not so much a religion in the conventional sense of the term. That's how I've understood it, and that's basically based on one line out of the Quran that I understood that.
Okay. So before this quote was introduced, till then, what was the understanding of people about Pakistan?
Well, if you were to ask ordinary people, they all believed that they were going to have an Islamic Pakistan. An Islamic Pakistan to them primarily meant equality, so social equality, because obviously their experiences in India had taught them that Islam would save them from social inequality, and economic equality, because certain so-called, what they call now modernist scholars, they were advancing the idea of Islam being able to bring, and that includes Iqbal, the idea of Islam being able to bring about economic equality. So your average Muslim of that period, if he was able to, at least read and write, your average Muslim of that period, they understood Pakistan was going to be an Islamic Pakistan, and they saw their leader, the Quaid-e-Azam, as this literally a leader of Muslims. One cannot exaggerate how much in awe they were of this personality. And then what happened was, and on the other side of it is, if you were to ask the leadership, officially they too believed in this, but in reality they didn't agree so much, and that's, if you like, where some of the problems pre-existed prior to the introduction of this quote.
Yep. Okay. Would you like to shed a little light on Dr. Muhammad Iqbal?
I haven't gone into the ins and outs of his philosophy in major detail. What I really went after, in view of trying to answer these questions that we have been talking about, is what angle, Iqbal, from what angle Iqbal viewed Islam. So the chapter was called Iqbal on non-sectarian Islam, and it was just to try and show, because there's a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to Iqbal about what he believed. Now you've got this very interesting split. So you've got people who try and present him as an ultra-conservative personality, and then which is completely silly when you start reading his material. And then you've got the other side who've kind of made other accusations on the other side. Some of them are very, petty and personal. So this personality is very, very different again when you actually read him. And what I was doing was I read just his works, didn't worry about anything else. And the Islam that he talked about, and he talked about, Islam not brooking divisions. He was very, very passionate about unity. He was absolutely obsessed with it, if you like. And so part of his reason for aversion to materialism was because he could see that it's creating this split between spirit and matter. And he says there is no split between spirit and matter. and he constantly on the political field, he was kind of, constantly talking about the need for unity, and for a long time he was also hoping that Indians altogether, not just Muslims, but including everybody, including the majority, would come together and fight the British together and end colonialism that way. And then when to his mind, he couldn't see it ever happening. That's when he then talked about, the very famous the Allahabad Address, in which he first made a tentative demand for what would later become known as the Pakistan idea. So the Iqbal that I discovered through just my personal reading is the one that I presented in my book. The reason was that it gives you a clear picture of how this visionary had, if you like, why this visionary saw what he saw in Mr. Jinnah. Because there are a lot of people who will say, especially those who think that he was a conservative, that, well, how could Jinnah have been a friend of Iqbal? It makes no sense. And yet we have Jinnah's own statements on record saying, well, he was a personal friend of mine, and he was a philosopher, and he was my spiritual guide. These are not statements you make unless you know somebody very well. So I tried to show exactly where that crossover happened. And in fact, there are really so many statements of Iqbal in his various philosophical works, in his his formal writing, and the speeches of Mr. Jinnah. There are so many crossovers. It's quite amazing. So I was able to kind of bring some of those together and show that, this is how these two are linked. The intellectual link, as I described it. So that's the Jinnah and Iqbal that I was presenting.
Thank you so much.
On the same kind of Muslim, if you like. Yeah.
Appreciate it. I understand you are not a parent.
No.
Okay.
Not a biological parent. Okay. I'm an aunt. My brother's children. They're both little. So the little girl, she's 2.
Oh.
And the little boy, he's 4, and they both just started their school. So one started nursery and the other one started infant school.
So what do you think about, what type of aunt are you? Do you enjoy it?
I surprised myself by how much I enjoy it. Anyone will tell you that, before they came along, that I was not known as a maternal personality. I'm very nervous around children, scared of dropping them, breaking them. I'm not the first person someone would think of as maternal personality. And then Jinnah came along, and that's my nephew.
Okay, yeah, because everybody would be like, huh?
Jinnah's my nephew. not
a 4-year-old Jinnah.
Yeah, and I don't believe in reincarnation either.
Okay. That's right. Okay.
No, he was named Jinnah because just because we talk about Jinnah so much in the house, the other one, so we thought we'd give the firstborn son the same name. It was my brother's idea, actually. I find it very sweet, and he's known as the little Clyde in our house. Mr. Jinnah and Mr. Jinnah's
You never know.
Yeah,
that's nice. So, do you have anything to say about parents in general, in your experience? Like, have you observed anything over the years that you can suggest something to the young parents or the young people who are going to be parents about how do they treat children? Is there any observation that you can shed some light on? What can we learn from you? Not having biological children does not mean that you don't know how to bring children up.
Well, yeah, because I live with them, so I'm the third guardian. So yeah, his mum always says that I'm like a second mum to them. So yeah, no, and obviously I'm seeing them every day, and I'm observing the parenting every day. So yeah, and I'm experiencing it indirectly. So yes, I suppose I can. It's a bit different because I'm an aunt, so my relationship will be a little bit different. But for parents and Jinnah's parents, they've done it quite well, is patience. If you're going to have a set of requirements, well, first is patience, and second is patience, more patience, and then and then the third is probably listening, because kids, just because they have tantrums, that's the big problem with children. They can't express themselves properly, they can't explain themselves properly, and that's just because their brains are still growing and their vocabulary is still growing, and they're emotionally still very immature. We use that word, but they're just very young. They're just not matured yet. So in order to bring up children well, it's very, very important to listen to what they're saying and why they're saying, and to learn to read what the meaning of their tantrums is, and if they're screaming, what that means, and what if they're throwing something, what that means. So we're very lucky here. They're growing up. They are very much confident kids. And that's down to the fact that their parents are very encouraging to them. And on the other side, they are learning to express themselves. I mean, Amina, that's the girl. She's only just starting to talk now. But even before she could speak even one word, she could explain what she wanted just by pointing or pulling you. And you have to. Those are the cues you have to learn to listen to if you're going to be a parent. You have to kind of accept from the beginning that these are young human beings. They're not just because they're tiny doesn't mean that they don't possess intelligence. I think that's something that a lot of new parents might struggle with, that oh gosh, just listen to me. You actually have to listen to the children. So that's probably what I would say, just from my basic observation.
How was your childhood?
My childhood was very different, because it was a different time. So my parents, they had been brought up in stricter households. So I would say my upbringing was more strict. This was a different, like I say, a different time. So yeah, my parents were much more strict than we are with but still, it's they were very loving. But they taught me right from wrong, and they taught me to have an open mind. So yeah, I had a good solid grounding in my childhood because of that. It was completely different then.
Were you open to your parents? Like, were they as open you are to your niece and nephew in terms of communication, or able to share or come to your parents and say whatever you want to? Was it open that way? Because was that the time? Because I see in those times we were not so open to our parents.
No, yeah, you're right. And I wasn't. I was a typical kid of that period. So, and I suffered from very much a strong shyness problem anyway. So I was very quiet. And I still am quite shy today, I suppose. But at the time I was terrible. I wouldn't speak very much, except when I was in school. Apparently I was an evil person in school. But aside from that, yeah, I was very shy. I wouldn't communicate with my parents perhaps the way that the children of today do. Yes. I just simply wasn't wired that way, and I think that was the way things were. But the older we grew, myself and my brother, the more we found we were able to talk to our parents, and they were always open to us.
Once you grew up.
That was once we got past maybe about 10 years old, we became more and more actively engaged with our parents, and in fact nearly losing my mum at 10 years old was a factor for me as well, because she had a brain tumour, and she very nearly died because it was diagnosed so late. She only had days to live. She'd had it for more than 6 months. So the shock of that experience, and knowing that I could lose her, kind of made me pay more attention and be more grateful for when she after she recovered, that to kind of make more of an effort on my own side. So as I say, I wasn't very communicative, so I kind of made more of an effort with her. She was, bless her, she was very open from day one, but it was my own issues as well. So I learned from that experience to have a better relationship with her.
Okay.
My dad, I was always, daddy's girl anyway, but with mum it was a bit different, yeah.
Okay. All right, let's come to some thought-provoking questions.
Okay. Try.
Okay. Well, if they are thought-provoking, they might not be thought-provoking for you. Who knows? Maybe you might be like, this is nothing. Give me something hard.
Okay, I'll see. Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a problem solver?
You see, the thing about problem solving is there are two kinds of problem solver. So there's the kind that have skills and they go through things in order. And then there's the other kind that just bangs their head against a brick wall and keeps staring at things until finally things might fall into place. And I represent the latter. And even though I have learned skills over time for problem solving, my natural default state is staring at things until I think they make sense. I'm that kind.
So you have a lot of patience.
Luckily for me, I'm stubborn. That's something that everybody who knows me will tell you. I'm very, 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 very stubborn. For me, problem solving is about grit and determination and nothing else. Wow. That is it for me. And I think everyone has that in them. You just got to go for it. That's my definition of problem solving. But you're lucky if you can do it.
Well, you solved a very huge problem in this book. So I think now it is on people if they want to read it and understand it. But you have done it. Like you brought something in front of people. I think that is a very big service you did.
Oh, thank you. That's sweet.
Okay, so let's go to something that you like about yourself, and one thing that you would like to change about yourself. Let's
just make this easy and say I like my stubbornness.
Okay, all right.
No, I like being stubborn.
Okay,
as much
it has served you well.
People.
It has served you well.
It has served me well.
Okay, that's why you like it. Why do you like it?
I like it because, no, I don't like it when I'm going through it because it causes everybody pain, including myself. Translation work has been a pain because I'm just as stubborn then. If I don't understand a sentence, I ain't moving till I understand it. And as my dad will testify, I'm a pain when I don't get it. And I get very moody. So the thing I like about myself is I don't give up, if you want to put it in more nicer terms. But personally for me, it's about being stubborn. I've always been stubborn.
Okay. And something, so this was like, so something that you would like to change about yourself?
Well, there's so many.
A habit, right? Habit.
A habit of running off and being shy. I'm still shy.
I know. I mean, to some extent, I know. Actually, I mean, I think I'm telling myself that this young girl has not given interview to anybody, and she has somehow. Thank God I wrote you the right words or something. Otherwise, you would be like, nope, I'm not talking to you.
I've been very horrible at times, with my refusals. I've just been, I've been lucky. I don't know why, I just refuse. And I think it is partly shyness, it is, but there are other reasons why I have refused interviews. It's not just purely because I'm shy. But I think being shy has at times, it's been both good for me because I get on with it. And it's bad for me when sometimes it's required of me to kind of, make a point or, publicly, and I just decide to run back into my shell. So if I was going to, delete any aspect of my personality, delete a gene, it would be the shy gene.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I really appreciate you talking about it and sharing, because this is going to be on the World Wide Web. So am I scaring you that? Oh, I shouldn't have. As soon as they said it, I was like, oh, I shouldn't say that to somebody who's. But
No,
maybe
no,
you
it's all right.
never.
No, I can say this. I don't know. You just seem so approachable, and I thought, if I'm going to face this demon of shyness, if I'm going to do it with anybody, I'm going to do it with Shweta Saiba, because you just came across so from the heart, and so kind and so understanding, if you like, as well. And I think you just tick the right boxes for me. So yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for watching part 2 with Saleena Karim. Hope you have enjoyed this episode as well. I want to talk to you a little. This episode is being released especially on the birthday of the founder of Pakistan, Mr. Muhammad Ali Jinnah. I did release the part 1 last week, and this is part 2, and there will be more coming up, because I have the honor to be in conversation with the author of Secular Jinnah in Pakistan, Saleena Karim. And I hope you can send me your feedback or comments about this episode or the previous or any other, and let me know what you think about our conversations. And especially for Pakistanis and people from subcontinent who will hear this conversation and get hold of her book Secular Jinnah and Pakistan, and learn about the history and what has been happening and all the related. So I wish you very happy new year that is coming up soon, and happy holidays for all my friends and family. And please stay in touch and think well for yourself and others, and please engage with me through my website lightupvichwa.com, or any other social media platform that you have found Light Up Vichwa podcast on. And stay well, stay happy, stay healthy, and take care of your families, yourself, your friends, and your relations. They are very important. And my suggestion for the new year is that please avoid misquoting, and if you can be accurate in your references, in your quotes, that is a good habit to be in, because as you will witness after reading this book and learning about our conversation, that misquote can literally change the course of history in a negative way. It can create misunderstandings. So I hope you have understood what my message is. Have a safe, healthy New Year, happy holidays, and Merry Christmas. Thank you.